Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. My name is Francisco Cantu, and I am 100% completely live on another live stream Monday. If you're watching us on either YouTube or Facebook, and this is your first time, welcome. If you are one of the people that join me every week, then welcome back. In case this is your first time, let me tell you a little bit about this live stream, how it's going to work out, the logistics, and what you can expect for the next 45 minutes to an hour. So basically, every week, every Monday evening, I hop on both YouTube and Facebook and I do live presentations on different topics that are related to whatever's going on in the world of college admissions. And these are usually targeted for parents of either middle school or high school students or high school students themselves. And I usually go through the presentation fairly quickly in the first 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on the topic and what I'm covering. And I always make sure to finish the presentations with a Q&A session. So at the end of the slides that I will be sharing today, that will be my opportunity, or I guess your opportunity, to ask your questions, because what I'll be doing is I will go on my screen and I have the ability, like right now I'm doing with Laura's comments, saying hello everyone. I will be sharing your comments and I will be answering your questions live. So again, if this is your first time joining us, I will do the presentation for the first 25, 30 minutes, and then I will hop into the Q&A session, where you can basically think of it as office hours. If, again, you're the parent of a middle school or a high school student, you're going through the college application process. Let's say you are the parent of a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, or even a senior, or even a student who's trying to transfer, whatever the case might be. You can go ahead and ask your questions, like Laura commented on Facebook, hello everyone, or the Best College Aid account commented on YouTube, hello everyone. You can go ahead and use those chat features to ask your questions. And as the presentation goes on, they can pile up. And at the Q&A session at the end, I'll be answering those questions. Do know that I have Laura monitoring both chats on Facebook and YouTube. Again, I shared her comment earlier, but she's monitoring the chats. That means that if you ask a question, let's say you're the parent of a freshman or the parent of a senior who is waiting to hear from college acceptances, and you ask your question, and I'm full on going through my slides that I've prepared for you for today's presentation, you do want to keep an eye out on that chat, because there's a chance that Laura will answer those questions before I get to the Q&A portion of the presentation. And of course, once I get to the Q&A portion of the presentation at the end, I will double down on whatever she says, and I will answer the question on top of whatever it is that she said. Okay, so do go ahead and let us know where you are joining us from. Use the comment section. For example, I have Jenna Dean right here saying hello, Francisco. I remember from previous presentations, Jenna Dean is a mother from New Jersey. So again, if this is your first time watching us, or if you're a recurring parent or a recurring watcher of these live streams, let us know where you are watching from and whether you are a parent or a student. So that way I have an idea of who the audience is, and I can make sure that all of the examples and the information that I share is, again, targeted and done so in a way that applies to you. Okay. And looking at more of the comments, if you see me looking down here, is because that's where I have the screen with the comments. I see the Best College Aid account saying, don't forget to ask your questions here in the chat. Yes, that's what I mentioned earlier. We will be monitoring the chats to answer those questions as we go along. Okay. So that is it for information, logistics, I guess a quick explanation of what the next 45 minutes are going to look like. But let's go ahead and jump into some announcements. Obviously, the first thing that I like to do in these live streams, if you go ahead and enjoy the information that I'm sharing, the presentation or the Q&A at the end, and you find value and you want to make sure that you don't miss out on whenever we go live, which is again every week at 7 p.m. or 7:15 p.m. You can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Best College Aid USA, or follow us on Facebook, and that way you'll get a notification every time I go up. I go on live. Next up, I see a comment right here saying hello, student, and that is Raisa Gabriela. Nice to have you here, Raisa. Make sure that if you have any questions throughout the next 45 minutes, you go ahead and use the chat to ask it. And at the end, I will be covering everything, as well as David and Laura in the chat. Let's see, like, for example, there it is. Laura saying, hello, Raisa, thank you for joining. And then I also have David here saying, welcome, everyone. All right. So that was the first announcement. Again, if you have not done so already, you are more than welcome to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you don't miss out whenever we go live. And next up is sharing our social media platforms across the board, whether that's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Our handle is exactly the same, Best College Aid USA. So again, if you want to watch our TikToks or our long form videos, that again, this is a live stream, so I'm usually here for 45 minutes, 1 hour, depending on how many questions you ask. But let's say you are a parent or a student and you want to consume the same information but in a quicker format, let's say like a reel that summarizes everything that I'll be sharing, then you can go to our Best College Aid account on TikTok and you can watch, a 1 minute long TikTok with a condensed version of the information that again I share every week on these live streams, or that we share on our long format videos on YouTube and Facebook. Same case with Instagram. We do carousels, we do videos. So go ahead and follow us on our social media, Best College Aid USA. All right, now that I got all of that out of the way and you kind of have an idea of what the next 45 minutes are going to look like, and you know that you can make use of the chat, let me go ahead and tell you what today's topic will be. And as we do at the beginning of every month, we do a checklist for the month. So what you should keep in mind and what important things are happening in the month of February that you should be aware of on your road to college. Okay, so today's presentation is going to be a college prep checklist for high school students in the month of February. Okay, and we chose pink because Valentine's Day on the 14th. And yeah, that is what I will be talking about for the next 45 minutes. Let's see more comments. We have Taha saying hello. Hello, welcome, welcome. Keep letting us know where you are joining from and whether you are a student or a parent, okay? So, with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. All right, so college prep checklist for the month of February for my high school students. Okay, so I'm gonna go over three things or three categories, three sections that are going on this month that you should be aware of. And then at the end of the presentation, or as we go along in the presentation, let's say I'm talking about point number one and you have a question that's related to what I'm talking about, I will answer it right away. However, if your question is completely unrelated, I'm gonna address it at the Q&A portion of the presentation at the end, all right? So the first thing that I want to make you all aware of this month is that during the month of February, many schools make their students select or choose their classes for the following year, okay? So if you are the parent of a freshman, sophomore, or junior in high school, odds are that in the next few weeks, you will be tasked, or your student will be tasked with selecting the courses that they will be taking for the following year. So, for example, if you're a student and your student is in ninth grade, probably this month they will be selecting the classes that they will be taking in 10th grade. Or if they're in 10th grade, they'll be selecting the class they'll be taking in 11th, same thing 11th to 12th grade, okay? So because that is coming up and I don't want it to be a game time decision, or the morning before, the classes are due, or whatever sheet of paper you select, or whether it's done online or whatnot. I don't want that to be a game time decision, but rather something that's premeditated. I want to go over the main things that you all should keep in mind when selecting courses for the following year. Okay, so first, there is an importance, or there is some thought and some preference that you should have towards selecting honors and college level classes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about advanced level classes. What I mean by advanced level classes, again, most of you should already know this, but if you don't, most high school offer their students the ability to take regular, honors, and college level classes or advanced classes. And what this does and the implications that each of these classes have on a student are the following. First of all, and the most important implication that it has is that it affects a student's GPA differently. GPA, grade point average. Again, most of you should probably already know this. I'm going to get more technical as I go along, but I usually like to start on these topics very, very broad and things that most of us already know, and then hone in into the very or more technical aspects of the topic. But again, a class will have, or a high school will offer regular honors and advanced level classes. And the way in which these affect a GPA, a grade point average, is that when it comes to the weighted GPA, one of the two GPA grade point averages that colleges evaluate or that high schools keep track of, weighted GPA takes into consideration the rigor of the class. In other words, the level of the class, whether it's a regular, honors, or advanced level class. And what this means is that if a regular scale or a scale for regular classes is out of a 4.0, depending on your high school, honors and advanced level classes might be graded on a scale of 5.0 or 6.0, again, depending on your high school. And taking advanced level classes means that if you do well, the potential or the ceiling for the highest GPA you're able to obtain is higher than if you take honors level classes. So, bottom line here is that if you go ahead and you hedge, or if you go ahead and make sure that your classes are a combination of honors and advanced level classes, then you set yourself up for success in terms of getting good grades, means that you can get a higher GPA because it's out of a higher scale. Okay, so most people already know this, and it's not something that's completely new, but I do want to make sure that if you're a parent, you prompt your student to go ahead and take advantage of advanced level classes, because again, these are going to have a positive implication or a positive effect on your student's GPA. And another benefit of taking advanced level classes, and right now I'm skipping a little bit over honors, I want to go straight into classes that are college levels, such as AP, IB, dual enrollment. You want to go ahead and get these under your belt, because a lot of universities will have their own methodology when calculating a student's GPA. The reason why they ask for a student's transcripts is so that they can see the classes that they took, the rigor of those classes, and then they can recalculate their own GPA to fairly compare all of their applicants. And if you have those advanced level classes, and let's say you took the AP exam or any sort of other accreditation necessary to get those college credits, not only will this have the positive impact on your GPA or your student's GPA that I talked about earlier, but it can also save you a lot of money down the road if your student again gets those credits and doesn't have to take those courses in class in college, because again, these courses might, instead of being worth or costing the $80 or whatever, however much the AP exam is nowadays, they might cost $500, $1,000, $1,500 per course at a university. Okay, so it's a two-folded benefit of taking these advanced level classes. Okay, again, I usually start broad and then get more technical. So if you have any questions, do let me know in the chat, and Laura and David will be answering those as I go along. And don't worry, at the end I will scroll back up and I will read all the comments and answer the questions of the Q&A portion at the end. Okay, going back to the presentation, though, the second thing that I want you to keep in mind when selecting your courses for next year, which is something that will happen in the coming weeks, is that a GPA above a 3.5, and this is in mostly in the unweighted scale, so the scale that is out of a 4.0, meaning the scale that doesn't take into consideration the rigor of the classes. You want to make sure that you're above a 3.5 just to be as competitive as possible. Again, the higher the better, and as close to a 4.0 the best. But for most universities, again, you want to be competitive, you want to have above a 3.5, but depending on your aspirations and ambitions, a 3.5 might not be enough, or a 3.5 might be best. We're just putting this as a baseline, and it all comes down to what your ambitions and what your list of reach, target, and safety schools are. Okay, but again, making sure that you strategically select advanced level classes or hard classes, quote unquote, on the fields that your student is particularly good at, will make it so that even if they're taking a challenging AP class, they can still do well because they're good at math or they're good at science or whatever it is that they select the AP class for. All right. And then the final thing that I want to talk about when it comes to selecting classes is a big I don't want to call it a misconception, but one of the things that a lot of students and parents hear is, do junior year grades count more in the college admissions process than senior year grades or freshman year grades? And um, I want to take this opportunity to answer that because, again, it's something that we hear a lot year to year. The reason why that came to be, or why a lot of people consider it that junior year is the most important years when it comes to getting good grades, is the fact that when students apply to college, they apply to college on as soon as they start their senior year or on the fall of their senior year, meaning that the latest full academic year that has been completed has been their junior year. So college admissions officers have their junior year grades as the latest and most recent indication of the student's academic performance, meaning that if they had a lot of circumstances in the household or in, I don't know, any other extraneous circumstance that was affecting the student's performance, well, if that happened early on and then they get back on track and start to perform really well, having that track or that progress is very much as indicative of the current status of the student as reflected by junior year's grades. Okay, so that is why a lot of people say that junior year is the most important, because again, if there was a drop off at the beginning, they can show and they can talk about like in the essays, they can talk about that progress, that transition, that change. And again, it's the latest indication of the current academic standing of the student. That's not to say that getting bad grades early on won't affect you, because at the end of the day, it will affect your overall GPA. But if you do get some poor grades early on, let's say your first semester of high school, that doesn't doom you forever. And that's something that can be corrected if, again, your student prioritizes school and gets right back on track and they perform really well during that later or tail end of their college career or high school career. And the same logic applies if a student applies later on the regular decision deadlines, which means that their first semester of senior year grades will have been completed and will be able to be sent to the college, meaning that whatever you do prior to applying to college is really really important. Okay, so that's just something that I wanted to cover and make sure that you all know. All right. So that was it for point number one, which is you will be selecting classes for the following year. Again, things to keep in mind, taking and leveraging those advanced level classes and the positive implications that this could have on a student's GPA and college credits, advancing getting college credits while in high school, getting as high of a GPA as you possibly can, and making sure that the tail end of your grades or whatever it is, the latest grades before you apply to college are in tip top shape. Okay. So that was point number one. Second thing that I want to cover as we go on with this presentation is you want to make sure to make an appointment with your guidance counselor. And what I've done here in this slide is attached something or an excerpt from an article that I was reading late last week that pretty much talks about how right now the national average is 408 students for every counselor at your student's high school or at the average high school in the United States. And I wanted to share this with you all to kind of put into perspective how difficult of a task college admissions counselors or guidance counselors at your students' high school currently have, because there is such a demand for their time and there are so many students that they don't have the resources to meet one-on-one, even if they have the best intentions or the best disposition or the best interest, your best interest at heart. They lack the resources to meet one-to-one with every single student plus their parents. Like, think about it. If every high school counselor has to be responsible for 408 students plus their parents. So if we want to round it out to, let's say 800 parents and 400 students, but whatever, for whatever circumstance, let's just say 1,000. They have to address 1,000 people every year. The math just doesn't add up for them to have the resources to do so. So if you do have a chance, to schedule a meeting or attend a conference or whatever it is that you can do within the means or the reasonable possibilities of your high school, you do want to make sure that you schedule a meeting. Why? Because more often than not, students don't reach out to their guidance counselors. They kind of wait for the counselors to reach out to them. And as we already discussed, they don't have the resource to reach out to every single one. So if the student is the one that gets proactive about meeting with the guidance counselor, well, that's a good way to initiate that dynamic. Again, if they are understaffed and they don't have the means to meet with you, that's a whole different story. But at least you can say from your end that you did everything you could to meet with them. So the goal in a perfect world, you want to meet with them at the very least once a semester. And what is the benefit of meeting with your guidance counselors is number one, they have a lot of resources that they know about that are specific to your local area. So for example, right now I'm doing these live streams and I continue to do these live streams, and I'm based out of South Florida. And the advice that I give, again, I take a lot of statistics that are for the national average, like the statistic that I just talked about for 408 students per every guidance counselor is based on a national average, right? But you might be in South Dakota, or you might be watching this from a more resourceful county in Northern California that, as a matter of fact, has a lot of guidance counselors, and every one counselor addresses 20 students. So what I mean to say here is that there are particularities and there are fluctuations depending on your region, your area, wherever you're watching from, and wherever you live. So meeting up with a guidance counselor is a great way to get very specific about the opportunities in your specific area, because at the end of the day, they live there and they're responsible for that. Which means that they might know of scholarship opportunities, they might know of internships, they might know of academic programs that you and your student can join. So again, there is no downside in trying to meet with them to assess your progress and hear from them what the opportunities are out there. So do make that effort to meet with your guidance counselor at least once a year, especially in February. In February, or by February, most college applications will have been submitted, and counselors that have to send out transcripts or that have to help students in the college application process, that wave of responsibilities and hard work might be coming down a little bit, because a lot of the applications were due in January, and while there's still a lot of applications that can be submitted in February, they might have a little bit more time. So that's just something that, again, the worst thing that can happen is you don't fit into the calendar and you come to these live streams, and that is why I'm here, and that's why we created Best College Aid, to be an additional resource. Okay, so worst thing that can happen is you just join me on Mondays and I can answer your questions like I do every Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Okay, but that's just one thing that I wanted you all to have in mind, that even though they're very busy and that they might be understaffed, you should just reach out because they might know of resources that are specific to your area. Okay, and then the last thing that I can do, or that I want to talk about in this presentation before I get to reading your questions that you have been adding in the chats on both YouTube and Facebook. And I have been seeing the chat moving a lot. Sorry that I haven't been able to read it, but I want to make sure that I get through these slides before I get to the Q&A session. So the last point that I want to talk about is to register for the March SAT or ACT. I attached a screenshot of the relevant dates for these exams. And pretty much who will need to hear this or do this, mostly juniors who are taking it for the first time. Taking the March SAT or ACT is a great thing to do because it gives you a baseline for where you're at and what you will have to prioritize and study over the summer, and maybe taking it at the beginning of your senior year or in the coming months. Again, you want to start by setting up a goal score, and then once you take it for the first time, you want to make sure that you review or compartmentalize the different areas, whether it's the science portion, the math portion, the reading portion. You want to make sure that you know how you performed at each of them so that you can prioritize and study in the areas that you perform the worst at. Okay, so that will be a priority. It's a no-brainer. You want to get better at the things that you can get better. And if you're already getting a perfect score, let's say in the math section, then maybe it might be a little bit of a waste of time to study and hammer math home if you already do well in that. Okay. So that's just something that I wanted to remind you of, because the worst thing that can happen when it comes to standardized testing is to have all the intentions to take it, but then not plan ahead and miss out on this deadline. So let this be a reminder if you are a parent of a student who is currently junior year, to go ahead and register for that March SAT or ACT. Okay. And just a reminder, if you're watching this and you are already a Best College Aid member, do know that you can email me and use the Best College Aid platform to let me know that you want me to activate your SAT or ACT study prep materials. Again, just if you're not a member, our members get study materials, a free Kaplan Test Prep Plus account courtesy of us. So if you are a member and you are interested in starting to prepare for the SAT or ACT, let me know, shoot me an email, and I will activate those accounts for you. Okay. So that is it for today's presentation. Just kidding. I completely forgot we had a fourth a fourth tip that I want to share with you also. Like, let's call it a bonus. Okay. So on top of the three that I already talked about, which are selecting your class strategically, meet up with your counselor, and making sure that you register for the March SAT and ACT. The last thing that you should do is apply to private scholarships. And this is for my seniors out there. Again, if you are the parent of a student who is a senior who will be starting school either over the summer or in the fall, and you already received your financial aid award package and you know how much institutional aid and state aid you're going to receive, the best use of your time right now is to continue to apply to private scholarships, because whatever it is that your financial aid award package says that you're going to receive, every single private scholarship that you apply on from now on will be extra money on top of that package. Okay. So students can start applying their freshman year of high school. That's something that a lot of people don't know, that you can start applying to private scholarships as early as your freshman year of high school. And then you can continue to apply. Here's the thing, you can continue to apply until you're well into your college career. You can apply to private scholarships your freshman year of college, sophomore year of college, and junior year of college. Okay. So big error that a lot of people commit is or make is believing that you can only apply to private scholarships when you are a senior in high school, and then they leave money on the table on scholarships that they would have otherwise qualified for, but they just assume that they didn't qualify for. Okay. So continue to apply to those private scholarships throughout your college career. But I do want to remind you right now in February that there's a good opportunity for you to start getting those under your belt. Okay. And then another thing that I want to discuss with you regarding private scholarships is that there are a bunch of online search tools out there. There's Scholarly, there's FastWeb. And again, you're part of why I talked about meeting with your local or with your high school's guidance counselors, because they might know of scholarship opportunities that are specific to your high school or specific to your county, specific to your area, that might not be published online. Okay. So they might know of those. So again, complementing your online engine search tools with the advice or with the plug from your private college, from your high school counselor, might be the best combination for applying to private scholarships. And then the last thing that I want to remind you all of, as we discuss on every single live stream, is that there are four types of financial aided scholarships. There's federal financial aid provided by the U.S. government. There is institutional financial aid and scholarships provided by the universities that you will be applying to and attending. Then there's state scholarships that are provided by the state you reside in. And then there are private scholarships. So all that advice was for my private scholarships. Okay. So understanding the four types of financial aid and scholarships is something that will be good for you to know, because then you will make yourself eligible for each one of them if you qualify. So you want to make sure that you qualify for, if you are let's say, a resident of Florida, bright futures. You want to make sure that you meet the qualifications. Or if you're in New York, the New York Tuition Assistance Program. If you're in California, the Cal Grant. You want to make sure that if you qualify for a scholarship or a type of scholarship, you make sure you submit the documentation or the prerequisites or whatever it is to make sure that you receive that money. Okay. So that was it for the presentation. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to scroll back up on the chat and I'm going to read some of your questions. But before I do that, I want to make sure that you are left with resources. I saw a comment earlier, or one of the latest questions, and I'm going to scroll back up and go in chronological order. But the last comment that I see is Risa saying, could you type all that out for me? So again, before I get started with the Q&A session, I do want to let you all know that this presentation has been recorded, and I will be posting this on our YouTube channel. So if on both our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. So if after this presentation you want to come back and listen to something I said, or watch the presentation over again, maybe pause it, you can go to the Best College Aid channel and you can rewatch. And another thing and another resource that I always like to remind you all of before I get to the Q&A session is our free presentation on the 6 strategies to go to college with scholarships. It's a training that I pre-recorded. So right now, obviously, this is a live stream, so I'm interacting and I'm going to be answering questions as they say, right off the dome, as I read them on both YouTube and Facebook. But I did prepare, and we do have in Best College Aid a training on the overall process that goes as early as the application all the way through financing and scholarships and life in college. So this presentation is titled The 6 Steps to Go to College with Scholarships. And if you are, let's say, watching us on YouTube, this is the YouTube screen, I guess. There's a little meta because it's me sharing my screen of my live stream. But if you scroll down to the show more button under the YouTube video, and you see free training. If you're interested in learning 6 strategies to help your student get accepted to college with scholarships, sign up here to watch. And you click this link, you will be taken to the registration page. So that's me and my sister Laura. I give out the presentation. And again, it's completely free to register. You just click the button here and you register and you watch it. It's about 45 minutes long, so the same as this live stream. And again, I pre-recorded it. We edited it together, my siblings and I, and we post-produced it, and it's a lot of values, same as this presentation. And I just wanted to let you know that that's a resource that, again, is under the live stream description if you're watching us on YouTube, and under the video if you're watching us on Facebook. And again, I like to leave you all with free resources before I leave or before I do the Q&A portion. And again, I always like to be very transparent with Best College Aid. We do these live streams to provide free information. As I mentioned in the presentation, there is an average of 408 students per one guidance counselor at the high school of your students. So the reason why we post informational content and why I come here and do these presentations every Monday on YouTube and Facebook, and then tomorrow again at 7 p.m. on Instagram and TikTok, is so that we can disseminate and give out as much information as possible that a lot of counselors have, but they don't necessarily have the resources to give out. So that's why we do this on social media, so that we can, again, spread as much as possible. And we did get a lot of comments of people who wanted to get advising, more personalized, or a program or something that could go beyond once a week on a live stream. And we do pitch at the end of this presentation that I just showed you. We do pitch and we do talk about our full paid program, the Best College Aid program. It is a full paid membership. So if you watch that free presentation, and let's say you have watched this YouTube live stream or this Facebook live stream, you watch the free presentation that's 45 minutes on the 6 steps to go to college with scholarships, and you say, okay, that was a lot of great value. That was a lot of good information. I enjoy their teaching style. I want to get more of their advising, more of a program, let's say their online course, their benefits, because we do have a lot of discounts for study materials, computer equipment, all that's included inside the full paid program, the membership. then you can go ahead and check that out. We do give you a 60% discount for having joined this live stream and having watched that presentation. And again, that's no strings attached. I'm still going to come back here next week and give out as much information as I can on these live streams, but that is just something that you can check out if, as I said, you enjoy my teaching style and you want more than just once a week. But again, my commitment is to just help out as many people as possible, but do know that there's that resource out there, okay? Now that I've got all of that out of the way, I did promise that I was going to end it with a Q&A session, and I want to deliver on that. So I'm going to scroll all the way back up to see the comments and answer your questions, all right? So let's get started. So I left off here. Taha telling me I am from Egypt. Thank you so much for joining us from all the way from Egypt. I love it when everyone tells us where they're watching from. That's why I always start the live streams asking where everybody's from. So thanks for saying that. Jenna Dean said that they are the parent or the parent of a 9th and 12th graders. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that everything that you learned with your 12th grader, you can apply with your 9th grader. You join us every week. So I'm excited to hear from your success in the coming weeks. Riza said that they are a senior. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Taha also said that they're in the last year of high school. Let's see. John said, hello, it's Sibel, parent of a freshman from Florida. Sibel, okay, so the YouTube user says John, but they're Sibel. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And the question that they asked is it better to get AP classes or study for the SAT, like focus on SAT instead? Okay, that's a great question, and let me answer that, Sibel. So pretty much it depends on the area of strength of your student application. So, and also where they're at in the process. So let's say your student is a freshman. You say you're the parent of a freshman from Florida. Okay. So you're the parent of a freshman and you're choosing your classes for next year. Okay. It might be better for them to focus on taking an AP class next year because it will be sophomore year. Because usually with standardized tests like SAT or ACT, you take those starting junior year of the students or starting junior year in high school, because by then the student will have learned everything that they will be assessed on or quizzed on the SAT or ACT. And if you start studying for the SAT or ACT right now, which again, the earlier you start studying, the better, but there is a chance that they have not learned the material, let's say from math, that they will be learning in their 10th grade or 11th grade class, right? So if you are right now, as you said, a freshman, maybe you can enroll in an AP class next year, and that won't get in the way of, let's say, if they enroll in AP Spanish or AP, I don't know, AP US history, they'll be taking that class, which will be beneficial for their GPA. And they'll also have to take whatever required math class is assigned to them for their, regular curriculum for their 10th grade class, which that by itself would be information that they will be assessed on in the SAT or ACT. Okay. So it won't necessarily conflict with one another because they still have to learn the material. Okay. So I wouldn't pick one over the other. I think doing well in classes and paying attention in class, learning that material well enough, will be beneficial for their studies in the SAT. And then AP classes, just make sure that they take them on topics on topics that they're good at, so that they are not in over their heads and just take an advanced class but don't necessarily do well. Okay, there's a bunch of good resources out there for the SAT when they do decide to take it or start preparing for them. I know that for our Best College Aid members, we provide them with ACT Kaplan Test Prep Plus account, and they also get discounts for the publishing house of Crash Course books. That's for the AP exam. So that's just something that I wanted to share, that our members get benefits or discounts for all these prep products for both the SAT and ACT as well as AP exams. Okay. But great question. Another comment that we got is Best college aid, David said, great question, John. AP classes seem to be more important now, especially after COVID. Francisco can discuss this in more detail later. Yeah, so that's what I explained. Then, if you want to learn more about how to win scholarships, register to the free webinar on the 6 steps to go to college with scholarships. I shared that already under the video. You go ahead and you register for that for free if you're interested. Then Sibel asked, but high SAT scores get true scholarships. Yep, you're right. High SAT scores as well as ACT scores can be prerequisites for merit-based awards. But the point is, if your student is taking, let's say, AP Calculus or AP Stats, more specifically with like AP Calculus, the foundation or the building blocks for those AP classes will take into account pre-algebra, algebra, and that material that will be assessed on the SAT or ACT. So if you think about it, yeah, there will be some stuff that they will have to, go back and refresh themselves off, maybe like geometry stuff, but you don't necessarily have to do one over the other. There are ways. And same thing if your student takes AP language or AP lit, AP literature, those are classes that will keep them trained and will hone their skills in reading comprehension and writing, which in turn are things that will be assessed on the SAT or ACT. So again, if you can find a way to take those advanced placement classes in the topics that your student will be assessed on in the SAT or ACT, it's a way that you don't have to compromise or pick one over the other, but rather take advanced placement classes on topics that will reinforce the material that will be assessed on the SAT or ACT. Okay, so hopefully that helps you out. Let's see. Another comment that I got was Risa saying, what happens if I have a low SAT score, lowest and less than 1,000 points? Here's the thing. Every school is different in their requirements and what they prioritize. So what we teach our members inside Best College Aid is to find schools that fit their strengths and that play to their strengths. Okay, so not all schools will prioritize standardized test scores, and not all schools will prioritize, let's say, GPA. What I mean by this is, yes, schools will take into consideration many of these factors. As a matter of fact, those are some of the most important factors: GPA, SAT, ACT, extracurricular activities. But if you go to a school's common data set, which is a PDF document that we talked about a couple live streams ago, you will see that different schools will say, oh, SAT and ACT, super important, something we really prioritize in evaluating our applicants. Okay, then if your SAT or ACT scores are not that great, you know that that school might not necessarily be the best, let's say, safety school or reach school or target school when you're making your final list of colleges. Okay, so the bottom line is, if you have a great GPA, but your SAT or ACT are not competitive, then it might be a good idea to make a final list of colleges made up of schools that prioritize high GPAs over SAT or ACT scores. Okay, so it's all a matter of playing the college admissions games in such a way that you end up applying to schools that will see you as a competitive applicant based on your credentials. Okay, excellent question. We work on this with our students, and that's something that if you employ correctly and you apply strategically to schools that will value your strengths, then you will increase your odds of acceptance at each of those schools, rather than applying to schools that give a lot of priority to SAT or ACT when you don't necessarily have as competitive of an SAT or ACT. Okay, great question. Let's see. Another comment that we got was, unfortunately, guidance counselors don't care about students. I can't speak for every guidance counselor. I know a lot of them that do have the best intentions, but they just lack the resources to help one-on-one, because there's just so many students. So I don't know. I think it's even if they do have the best intent and they do want to help the students, there's just so many students and so many families, and a lot of schools are understaffed. So yeah, so hopefully these live streams and this information can be of help, not just to you, but to those guidance counselors who want to get information out there, but they don't have that face-to-face time with their students. Okay, so So yeah, hopefully you have learned a lot over the last hour. Let's see. David said there are other types of merit-based scholarships students can qualify to besides academic merit-based scholarships. That's true. There are athletic scholarships. There are volunteering-based merit scholarships, and usually those can be private scholarships. If there are universities that give out, institutional scholarships for students to be in the drama club or the play an instrument, all those are based on merit and it's tied to more of an extracurricular than an academic program. Okay. But very, very true. And then, yeah, yes, if you're an athlete, that's a good example. Um, Taha said, "How can I study in Harvard for free?" Great question. Studying in Harvard for free. So, as you know, very competitive university, one of the top in the world. Yeah, on top of having a lot of, I would say, I would be more worried about getting accepted to Harvard just because it is one of the most competitive universities to get accepted into over the money because Harvard does have a history of being very generous with their applicants, especially if they have demonstrated needs. So, what I would focus on here, Taha, is seeing how your academics, extracurriculars, and every component of your college application matches the priorities of Harvard in terms of their common data set. Every university has a document called a common data set in which they lay out and explain what each university assesses the most or prioritizes the most when evaluating a student. So, for example, some universities, some state universities, might have a factor such as demonstrated interest as something that they consider when evaluating students. What's demonstrated interest? Well, we've talked about it in many presentations, which is visiting campus, uh, touring the schools, being interested in specific programs. But when there are schools so popular like Stanford or Harvard, they might not necessarily value demonstrated interest as much as they value, GPA, SAT, ACT, etc. So as with any school, you can say you said Harvard, but with any school, what I would start by doing is looking at what the average admitted student had done in terms of their statistics. What is the average student's GPA, SAT, ACT scores, volunteering track record, and then comparing yours to theirs to see how far off you are, whether or not you are on track. And in the particular case of Harvard, I would very much see what your demonstrated need is. If you're a domestic student, you can very much use an EFC calculator, an estimated family contribution calculator, and then compare it to or stack it up to Harvard's financial need policies, and that will give you a good idea as to how much money or what range of scholarships you can expect in their financial aid award package. But from my understanding, they're a very generous institution once you get accepted to the school. Okay, so good luck with everything, and I do recommend you watch that free presentation that is in the link in my below the YouTube video if you want to learn more about the whole process. Okay, great question. All right, more questions. Risa is asking, do all colleges care a lot about SAT scores? Here's the thing, there's a lot of schools that are test optional or even test blind. So if your SAT scores are not competitive, I recommend number one, looking for schools that might be test optional so that you don't have to send those scores and your GPA and your extracurriculars and your essays can speak for themselves without being weighted down if your SAT scores are low. And I would also look into schools, as I mentioned earlier, that give less of a priority to SAT scores or that don't necessarily consider or evaluate SAT scores as importantly or as strongly as they consider or evaluate GPA or extracurricular activities. Okay. So, to answer your question concretely, not necessarily all colleges care a lot about SAT scores. Okay. You got to find the schools that will care about the credentials or your statistics that you excel at. Okay, great question. Um, let's see. This comment, John saying, no, in my kid's school, they divide students by their last names. So there is like 4 counselors total. Oh, so this was in reference to when we were talking about the shortage of guidance counselors. Let's see. Rice has said, could you type that out for me? This presentation is being recorded, so you can just go to our profile on both YouTube, Best College Trade USA. Here are our handles. On YouTube and Facebook, this presentation will be posted. Again, yeah, we do this every week, so 7 p.m. Join us on both YouTube and Facebook on Mondays, and I will be doing this presentation. All right. Let's see more comments. This one says, thank you so much for the valuable information you provide. It's my pleasure. Again, I do this every week, and hopefully this reaches you on time. We do a lot of advising, and a lot of our members say that they are very happy that we popped into their timelines, whether it's because they were scrolling YouTube or Facebook or whatever the case might be. So one of the saddest things that we hear is when families tell us that they learned a lot and that they're very happy that they found us, but that it's a little too late because their student had already, gone through the college application and financing process and they didn't do it successfully. So hopefully that is not the case for you, and this reaches you just in time for you to get the most value out of this, and you can start applying things that you learned in these presentations. So I'm happy to hear that you're grateful for this. Lizbeth is asking, the presidential scholarship is only for first year of university or for 4 years? Thanks. My son couldn't apply, but is accepted into FIU like an honor student. Okay, so with every scholarship, so presidential scholarship, typically institutional award, and there might be some criteria, some eligibility criteria regarding the GPA that they have to maintain, the grades that they must get in their classes, how many absences they might have. So what I would do is I would start by contacting the institutional financial award office, so financial aid office at whatever school provided you with that financial award package. It's unclear if you said that your student got accepted to FIU and that's the school you're talking about, or if it might be a different school. But whatever the case might be, when it comes to institutional awards, I would always call the financial award office and make sure that you ask about the eligibility criteria and whether it's a recurring scholarship or not. Again, every institution might have different policies and different criteria for you to maintain those scholarships. If it's a private scholarship, which is not the case, because again, in this particular case, in most cases, presidential scholarships are given out at the institutional level. I would still, with private scholarships, let's say it's a scholarship from Comcast or Coca-Cola, whatever the case might be, always read the fine print on the scholarship award description, because they tell you if it's a recurring scholarship or a 1 year scholarship. Okay, excellent question. Race is letting us know that they are homeschooled. Thank you for sharing that. Best College Chase shared a smiley face. And then David said, hi, Lisbeth. It depends on the schools. Some are for first year students and other are for students as well. Yeah, that's why I recommend going ahead and contacting the Financial Aid Award Office. Stephen Corners gave a thumbs up. Thank you so much for that, Stephen. David is saying you are welcome. If you want to learn more, don't forget to check out our free webinar. That's true. And in case you joined late, if you are watching us, let's say on YouTube, this is the presentation. So, this is the YouTube video that you're watching. If you go down to the description, there is a free training section that you can go ahead and click. And then once you click it, you will see the landing page for the presentation. That's me and Laura. And you register for free down here. And way more than what I've explained over the last hour will be explained in this presentation that, again, I recorded, filmed, David and Laura helped me edit it. And yeah, it's a ton of value that we give out in this presentation. And then at the end, we talk about the full Best College Aid program, what it includes. And for those of you who are interested, what you can do to join today with a special 60% discount after having watched the presentation. Okay. So let's see more questions. Rice is saying, where could I find good and easy scholarships? Okay, so with scholarships, again, there are 4 different types of scholarships: federal, institutional, state, and private. When you say where can I find scholarships, I'm assuming that you're speaking of private scholarships. And if that's the case, there's a ton of search engines online: Fastweb, Scholarly. But what I would always recommend is asking your high school counselor if they have a list of local scholarships, because usually those are less competitive because they're at the local level. Uh, but before even doing any of that, before focusing on private scholarships, it's more valuable, or there's a higher return on investment, bang for buck, in investing your time in making sure you're eligible and meeting the criteria for federal, institutional, and state scholarships, because those tend to pay out or give out more awards, especially based on need, than private scholarships. Okay, so once you make sure that if you're eligible, you apply for those three types of scholarships, then you can focus on private scholarships. Okay. And I think that was the last question. There were a lot of comments today, which I am very happy about. Hopefully, if you had a question, I got to it. I think I got through all of them. I don't see any more. So yeah, I hope I answer your questions, your doubts. I once again, a reminder is I do these live streams on the Best College Aid platforms, on English, Best College Aid USA, on YouTube and Facebook every Monday at 7 p.m. And then tomorrow, which is a Tuesday, at 7:15 p.m., I will be live on Instagram and TikTok. And again, that's the dynamic every Monday and Tuesday. 7:15 is live stream Monday and Tuesday. And again, I have just been doing presentations and answering questions for the last hour. So I hope that you got a lot of value. If you want to rewatch this, it will be posted on both YouTube and Facebook. If you want to learn even more about, the college application process, how you can learn more about it, how you can master it. Today I focused a lot on reminders from the academic perspective, but if you want to focus more on scholarships or whatever other element of the college application journey, that will be discussed in the free presentation that is below this YouTube video, and that is in bestcollegeusa.com. If you want to go straight to our website, that's also fine. I hope you got a lot of value. I will be back here tomorrow on Instagram and TikTok. Check out that free presentation. Thank you so much for joining me. I feel blessed every time I get to do these live stream Mondays, and have a lovely rest of your Monday. Bye-bye, y'all. Thank you.